Hey Spence, it's Mr. Gorman. Got your email from Kyle, and he said you needed some assistance on socks for a school project, so I'm happy to answer some questions. He forwarded me the email, so I'll try to be succinct and hopefully insightful. So nice day in Burlington here. You can see on the lake is looking nice. We're kind of waiting for some snow. No snow on the ground yet. A little colder than North Carolina, I would imagine. I kind of came across this as well. Thought maybe your classmates would appreciate it. All right, All right, socks. Let's see. Okay, what are your questions? Okay. Please tell me a little bit about your company, industry, job. My company is People's United Bank. We're about a $50 billion, close to $50 billion financial institution, headquartered in Connecticut. We have kind of a footprint all over New England, a little bit into New York. We do some leasing down in some of the southern states. We're in Texas. We have some leasing exposure in Philly, Carolinas, California. So financial services industry is pretty straightforward. Banking is, I'm sure your class understands about that. My job, I work in commercial risk, and my job, in a simple way to put it, is I evaluate the risk of the portfolio of loans that the bank has, and decide on how we should reserve against losses in that portfolio. I guess that's my simple way of talking about it. Again, we're in the 44 billion, so it's a lot of loans, and we have to quantify how we should look at those, which are the riskier loans, and if we should reserve against those. Okay, what do I think of the Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002? Okay, it's a dual-sided issue. I think the first side is public trust. When we're dealing with financial services, I think the core competency, or the core reason why we need regulation is for public trust. If there's no public trust, the faith in the financial services industry, we can't capitalize on leverage and grow the economy. So I think that's kind of the underlying reason. And then, when SOX came into play, this was post, I think it was Enron, and there were some other companies that had some financial scandals based on the information that was presented. And so, it's a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to put something in play that's going to heavily regulate the information that's provided by these SEC companies. So I know in recent years, I think there's been companies that have kind of rebelled against some of this SEC regulation and decided, well, we'll just go off and maybe just not list on the major exchanges because of the cost of keeping. That's the other side of the sword, is the cost. Is that whenever you have heavy regulations and litigation, you need a team of lawyers to keep compliance in place with your organization. And so in some ways it hurts the financial services industry because we're required to put so much money and capital and time into the compliance aspect of the regulation. So back to the public trust side, you can, as recent as what was the market crash, the housing market, it was 2008, I think, where, the lack of regulation on financial derivatives kind of caused some instability with securities, and that cost mom and pop in middle America, to lose half their 401k. So I think lack of regulation is something that maybe the public isn't quite ready for, because I think there's a lot of smart people, and I think the market is controlled by greed in effect. And I think for every regulation, there's groups of people that are trying to find ways around the regulation. If we had strict deregulation, I'm not sure that would benefit the public overall. All right, can you describe how SOX has affected your job? I think we banking industry, we make loans, and we deal with a lot of publicly traded companies, and part of the assurance that we have and the comfort that we have in making these loans and using depositor funds to make these loans is the information that's provided to us. And that's kind of, things are very complex. I don't know if you've ever read a financial statement, but I don't have a big one around, but I mean, it can be, a sizable piece of information, 300 pages worth of information in disclosures. And if we did not have those, the decisions that we made from a loan perspective, I think, would be impacted. So I think the SOX, from my individual job performance, SOX is a valuable piece of surety for my group. Now, on the other side of it, again, in the banking industry, SOX is expensive, and we have teams of compliance folks that are trying to maintain our compliance on how we account and regulate, which would suggest that it's a very restrictive environment, and it makes it difficult for new entrants into the market and for the market to kind of stabilize. So it promotes economies of scale, and that's what you're seeing is with the days of the small banks are going away, and everything's about merger and acquisition, bigger regional banks, which I don't know if is really good for the microeconomy. Joe Blow on the corner that's trying to start a business. Okay, do you think SOX had a major influence on how the public perceives the reliability of information released by your company? I think the average person is not aware of it, and I think but I think the market, which represents whether it's the wealth managers or the analysts or the investment houses that are handling the investments of Joe Public, understand it quite well. If we fail a SOX audit, there can be some serious market ramifications for our stock price. So I think that the vast majority of the consumers are maybe unaware of it, but definitely the market is aware. So it's kind of an ongoing discussion. Kind of summary. I know you're trying to kind of get a feel for this. It's regulation, but I think some regulation is necessary. So this is SOX as a first pass at things. They've been talking about SOX. Amendments, and I think, like anything else, anytime you put the first pass through, you're going to find areas where it's not quite as effective as you thought it was going to be, or too effective, or the costs outweigh the benefits. Do I think SOX repeal is in order? Maybe not. I think that there's too many folks waiting to capitalize on deregulation, and I don't think the average consumer is smart enough to understand what they're investing in, and in some ways they place their faith in those the market experts, and so I think in order for stability in the economy and a little bit of control and preventing abuse from those in the know capitalizing on those that aren't in the know, I think some level of regulation is appropriate. I hope I've shed some light. Hope I haven't confused you, and I've gone on here for 10 minutes, so that's probably long enough. Good luck, and I'll see you in a couple weeks. Hey, Williston.